Hi, I'm the Moorlander and this is Moorlander EDC. Straight into it today because, do you know what? If you're in the market for a new flashlight or a new torch, I think this might be the one for you. This is the Olight Baton 3 Pro. Now I've had this now for about 2 weeks and generally I tend to take a little bit longer to test these sort of things. But just in that 2-week period, this is really, because I really enjoy saying really, this has really impressed me. So what I wanted to do, I've actually bumped this ahead of a few other flashlights, which again, you know, I try not to do, but yeah, so this is new out. If you're after some information about this, then let's give you all of that now. I'll turn the camera around as I usually do. Whilst I'm doing that, if at any point you find this content helpful or amusing or you enjoy it, then please feel free to hit that like and subscribe. That would be absolutely amazing. And if this does help and you think, I want to buy that guy a beer, then check out the new thank you button below. But for now, let's turn the camera around and take a closer look at the Olight Baton 3 Pro. Did I do 3 right then? I think I did, yeah. Olight Baton 3 Pro. So just a quick look through the unboxing. Inside you get the light, generally as you'd expect when you purchase a product, but then underneath here, so there's always the instructions as far as if this is the first time that you've used it. I will say that the wind has picked up, so apologies if you do hear the wind, but yes, so it says you need to make sure that you fully charge it before using it. There is a warranty. There's also some instructions as well, which I just have to the side. You get this nice cloth bag, which I mean, don't get me wrong, it's nice. Slightly overkill, considering, you know, you can wrap this in here like a burrito kind of thing. Anyway, so yeah, you get one of those. You get the proprietary charging cable. Well, you also get one of these little brackets and an extra piece of adhesive so that you can stick it. So it is magnetized on the bottom, so wherever you want to put this, whether you want to stick it to a wall or maybe next to the door where you put your keys, then you can attach that on there. You can magnetize it to the top and to the bottom, which, yeah, it's always nice. Now really what we are here to see is the Baton 3 Pro itself. Okay, so as we usually do, we'll go through some measurements, we'll go through some materials, and we'll go through some functions. Now, I usually try to get through this quite quickly because I know you guys, you just want to see that in the dark action. So, as far as your measurements are concerned, this comes in at 101.4 millimeters by 23 millimeters in thickness. Now, it is roughly the same size all the way through. The barrel here, although it does taper in ever so slightly, we're talking maybe a millimeter off the radius or 2 millimeters off the diameter. It's certainly not a large amount. You have this really nice, I guess you might call it knurling or something like that, to give you some grip on it. In inches, it's 3.99 inches. Let's call that roughly, you know, that's 4 inches by 0.91 inches as far as the diameter is concerned as well. Reasonably light as well. Only comes in at 103 grams, and that's with, I believe that's with the battery included as well. Talking about the battery on the inside of here. Again, you know, I always talk about this when I do flashlight reviews or torch reviews, but unscrewing this, the tolerance on the threads on this is actually really nice. When you start to unscrew it, there's no wiggle whatsoever in the threads, even when you get down to it just popping off. So the machining on this is definitely done to a very high standard. But pop the battery out, and you can see that this is one of Olight's 18650 batteries. I believe a lot of Olight flashlights or torches use their own proprietary batteries. I thought I had, but I genuinely don't. I thought I got a few other 18650 flashlights, but I don't, and it surprises me because I know this is a very common battery size, but all of the other lights they've got, they're either smaller or they're the larger 21700 light batteries. I had been talking to somebody recently, and I do apologise because I get a lot of comments. But somebody was talking about that they'd spent some time with a relative and dismantling some machinery, and they'd found a lot of 18650 batteries. So this would hopefully work. Now, as I mentioned, I know that they use their own proprietary ones, and I think it's mainly down to the positive electrode here at the end. So if anybody has picked one of these up, if you'd like to put a note in the comments as to whether or not other 18650 batteries do work in here, that'd be great. Other people will be able to read that and they'll be able to see if they do work, or if it is just the fact that it's just the Olight 18650 batteries that do work in here. But yeah, nice and tight in there. There is a rubber O-ring in there. So as far as the IPX rating on this is concerned, it has IPX. It's IPX8. X, or at least the IP, is the water and the dust and water. So the X, it's not being tested for dust. But as far as water is concerned, it's tested up to 8, which is the highest that the water rating will go. So I think if you're concerned about dust, generally, I'd say not to worry too much about that. But this can be submerged underwater. Certainly not any issues. I wouldn't leave it under there for hours and hours. And if you're gonna try and go down to 200 meters, again, that's probably not going to work. But also, as far as drop resistance, it's tested that it can drop from up to 1.5 meters, which I believe is about 1.5 yards, roughly, I think. But as far as the charging, I move the thing over there. So the charger on this, the charging is all done through the bottom, and they Olight have a proprietary charger. Now, generally, I'm not a big proprietary charger kind of guy. I much prefer it if it uses a USB Type-C. But do you know what? Damn it, these chargers are just so cool. There's a magnet in these so that it just clips on. You don't have to worry. You can turn it around. You can do everything that you need to do, and it'll still keep charging. Plus, and again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but all of Olight's chargers will work across all of their different lights that they have. So if you have other ones, they will work with these. And if you do need to pick up another one of these, they're not particularly expensive. So roughly the same price that you'd maybe pick up a cheap. Well, not maybe a super cheap one. You can pick up a USB Type-C cable for probably a couple of quid. But if you wanted to pick up another one of these or another couple of these, they're not particularly expensive, which I think is a good thing for Olight to do. But charging these doesn't particularly take a long time to charge, and there is also a battery indicator on here as well. So when it's turned on, yep, it's probably difficult to see, but when it's turned on, there is a green LED. Well, actually, there's a series of lights in here. So whilst it's on, if you see that there is a green LED on here, it means that it's at 60% or above. If it's an orange LED, then it means that it's between 60 and 10% of the battery. If it's a red flashing light, if it's a red light, it means that it is between 10 and 5% of the battery. And if it's a red flashing light, that means that you need to put the torch down, step away, because the FBI have been notified that you've been using a battery illegally under a set limit, so you need to charge it. Well, actually, you just step away because the FBI will be around within seconds. But yeah, plug it in, charge it up, and yeah, it's all job done. Around the light, I suppose we've kind of touched on a few features, but you'll be able to see that there is quite a nice pocket spring on this. Now this spring is super tough, and it's one of these double ones as well, so you can put it in your pocket. It's reasonably, I was thinking of a knife there, a reasonably deep pocket carry, but it does just show a slight tip. That's what she said. But then also, so you can maybe clip that to a hat, or you can do it the kind of the reverse way around if you wanted to use it the reverse way around as well. If you did want it to affix it to certain things as well, rather than, you know, forcing your kids to hold the light back in the 80s, then you can magnetize this onto something and hopefully get it so that it points in the right direction. The on and off and all of the other functions that are associated with this are all done through this single button, which we'll have a look at. And then here at the end you'll be able to see the LED in there. Oh, have we gone out of focus for a second there? Apologies if we have. But if, oh, I've lost my notes. Where's my notes gone? This uses the Cree, I think it's the Cree 71. I apologise. Yes, it's the CRI 70 LED in there. But as far as the lumen levels are concerned, now I'm gonna bring the box in here for a second. So let's just put this so that we're in focus. If you want to pause this at any point, then feel free, because generally this is what I'm going to show you now. So you can go through the Moonlight setting, which is half a lumen, and you'll get 120 days out of that. Now that's crazy. That genuinely is crazy that you can get 120 days. Low is 15, medium is 120. Hold that there again. High 600. Now there is a step down on this. Hopefully you'll be able to see it will stay at 600, and then it'll drop down to 120, and then you've got turbo, which is 1500 lumens, and there is a step down again after 2 minutes. It'll then drop down to 600 lumens. I'm just going to leave that there for an extra second more, just in case you want to go through those. Now going through as far as the button presses are concerned, it really is a simple press on and off. There are a series of different styles of presses that you can do. So when you press just a simple on to turn it on, then you have the low, medium and high options. There is a shortcut through to the Moonlight setting. All you have to do is keep the button depressed for a few seconds, and there you'll see that this comes onto Moonlight. Now I say this a lot, in all of my content, but Moonlight and low generally are the settings that I use the most. I think that they're perfectly fine. Half a lumen on this is quite low, don't get me wrong. Generally you tend to find with low, or at least the Moonlight mode, that it tends to come in at 1 lumen. But I guess for Olight, sorry, I've just been pointing that into the light there, so that's messed up. I just messed up my white balance for a second then. I thought I destroyed my camera. I think for Olight, having that kind of, yeah, we can do 120 days out of this light at half a lumen, whereas if they'd have probably, I mean, I don't know exactly how battery technology works, but just as a layman and a guess, if they'd done that as 1 lumen, then they'd only been able to have got 60 days out of it. So I can see from a marketing perspective why they'll have done that, but I suppose from an EDC perspective as well, it's nice to know that you've got something that would last for a long time if you really needed it to. So that's your Moonlight mode. Now to turn it off at any point, you just press off, and that will, wow, it's very windy, sorry about that, and it will turn it off as well. There is a memory on here which so when I turn this back on, you'll be able to see, hopefully, that it's still in Moonlight mode. If you're in Moonlight mode and you want to get through to the normal kind of regular light modes, then you can do a slight long press, which is anything longer than about a second, and it will go back into the normal functions. But again, if you turn it off and then turn it back on again, it will remember the previous setting that you're on. To go between low, medium and high, as you get with a lot of Olights, the user interface on them, you do a long press whilst it's on, and it will cycle through those. So if the reason that it's doing that is because it has a proximity sensor, which I actually really like. So I've talked in the past, and I mentioned it on this one, that I much prefer a double click 4 on, mainly because there's been issues in the past where lights have turned on in people's pockets or people's bags, and these things are bright enough and they get hot enough that they can start fires. So Olight recently have integrated a proximity sensor into their lights to make sure that if this comes on high or turbo, and it notices that it's within a certain distance. Now at the moment this is on low, so it's not going to change. In fact, let's put it onto high. If I move this closer to my hand, it will kick down because it's noticed that it's within a certain distance, whereas when I move it away, you didn't really see that bump up then, but it will kick it down to a lower output. Now where was I? So yes, so you can cycle through all of the modes. Oh, I think we're just going to have focus there. Apologies about that. So you can cycle when it's on, so you can cycle through the modes. Let's put it back down into low, medium and high. Now when it's on, or even when it's off, to get into the turbo mode, which is your full 1500 lumens, if you do a double press, then that will engage the turbo mode, which is actually really nice. I think turbo modes, again, getting into the, here's the big headline, this is the kind of output, almost a semi kind of peeing up against the wall competition. Turbo modes are great, however, I generally rate lights as far as low, medium and high, generally because they're the ones that you'll tend to use the most. And the turbo mode on this is great. It's a nice 1500 lumens, and the fact that you can get a couple of minutes out of that before it'll kick down, I think is great. On high, I think the fact that on high that you're getting 600 lumens out of that, I think that's sufficient for your everyday use. Extra little points on here as well is it also does have a strobe mode. So rather than doing your double press for the turbo, you can do 1, 2, 3, and then it will enter strobe mode. I don't think it is a variable refresh. I tried to work it out, but I think it was because I was blinking that it looked like it was doing a variable refresh. But I don't think it is. But you can click it again, and that will turn that off. Just in case you are concerned about accidentally turning this light on whilst it is in your pocket, there is also a lockout on this. Whilst it's off, all you need to do is press the button, hold it down, and then I don't know whether it's just done it. You'll get a flash on there, and that just means that it just won't turn on, or it does turn on, but it turns on onto the light onto Moonlight momentarily. Whereas to turn that back off again, you hold it down, you'll get a quick flash, and then we're back on. The proximity sensor, there is also a feature on here that if you wanted to, you can turn off the proximity sensor. Personally, I wouldn't advise that, mainly because the proximity sensor is there for a specific function to make sure that it doesn't turn off. But I can imagine if you're using this for security and maybe you need to peek through windows or that sort of stuff, you may get some light reflecting back. In order to do that, you need to make sure that you're close to the proximity, and then when you do your double press to turn it on, you keep your finger on it, and it will time that out, so you can turn it off if you choose to. But again, I don't really see for everyday kind of EDC use that's something that somebody would want to do. But Olight have put in the option that if you want to turn it off, that you can turn it off. But for now, let's have a look at how well this performs in the dark. Actually, I jumped out of turn there for a second. We will have a look how it goes in the dark in a second, but I just wanted to show the size comparison with this. So I know we've gone through the size, but when I got this, I was genuinely surprised that it was just smaller than I expected. So here we have the i5T, and side by side, I mean, you're talking about maybe 5 or 6 millimeters in length between the two. It's one thing that really did surprise me. I thought this was going to be larger. I had read the specs. I know it's only 100 millimeters. I know how big 100 millimeters is. But yeah, it really surprised me. And I think as far as an EDC pocketable flashlight, this is actually really good for that. Now we will have a look at what it looks like in the dark. Okay, now on the moonlight setting, it's generally quite hard to see in this light. So if I come down close enough, you can see here that you can kind of see in the dark with it. But really at this distance, it really is just very hard to see moonlight on this. When you're in a completely dark black room, it's definitely easier to be able to see around, but yeah, at this point it's quite low. So we'll go through those other settings that I mentioned earlier. Let's just make sure that I get on to low. So here is low. This is 15 lumens. Now the low on this is actually really nice. I think 15 lumens is a great low setting. It gives you ample light. Here we can see into the trees. This tree is about 5 meters away. Some more trees over there, and then you can just see the light on these trees. These trees, they're probably about 15 meters away. There is another tree just there which you can just about see in the center. And then on the other side of the road here, we've got some more trees. But again, you know, when you're inside a building, using this for an EDC style flashlight, just around and about, these 15 lumens really are, you know, enough for you to be able to do your kind of day-to-day things that you might need a flashlight. Now I will apologize, I think mainly because of the low light. That's the reason why this is having difficulties being able to see them. So instead I'm going to do a long press, and then this will then take me up to medium. Why can't we get this? Let's get this in focus. Here we go, here's focus. So the medium on this is 120 lumens. So the leaves that you can see here at the side of the road on my drive, you know, you can see the tarmac really well. There's that tree that I mentioned before that's about 5 meters away. And then the other trees that I mentioned that are about 15 meters away. And then there's that other tree that we struggled to see before, coming around this way. Now being able to see the light on these is definitely a lot easier. Being able to see up into the canopy as well is also a lot easier on this light mode too. As with most things really, the camera doesn't do it justice. What we can see here with 120 lumens, you know, you can see, or at least I can see, a good 20, 25, 30 meters down the road. Unfortunately, with the light that can pick up from this camera, you don't really get to see anything down there. Although bizarrely, there's a child's charm hanging in the tree just there. That's not scary at all. Now with another long press, then I can get this up to high, which makes that child's charm even easier to see. The light on this tree, like I mentioned, that's about 5 meters away. Those trees now that are 15 meters away are really a lot easier to see, and the other tree there. And then you can start to see the trees as it just goes round the bend there, which is probably about maybe 30 meters away, and then a sweep around, and these trees are even lighter. Going back over here, just had to let a car go past, which I thought was quite funny. So being able to see down there, I can see all the way down, and then coming up again into the canopy, you can see these trees a lot clearer. 600 lumens on high is great. You know, it's a lot of lumen age. Is that a word? But when I bring it down here, looking at as far as the warm spot is concerned, you can see that there's definitely a warm spot on there, but it's not a very precise kind of hot spot with a very defined area around it, which allows it really to diffuse, to make sure that you get lots of light over a larger area. Now I'm going to do a double click, and this will then take us up into the turbo mode, which is 1500 lumens. You know, again, there's that tree, but hopefully if you can see past now, being able to see into the foliage behind, if I if I move this across like this, you can certainly see deeper into the woods behind, being able to see down the road. So as I mentioned before, that was about 30 meters down there, which you can now easily see. And then there are, which is, it's just kind of here, if I shine the light down again, there are further trees down there, which are probably about maybe 50 to 60 meters down, which I can now start to see a whole lot better. And then here into the woods as well. Now I did mention the proximity sensor on this, so I'm going to hold this towards the floor and move it closer to the floor, and hopefully you'll see just there that the proximity sensor does dip down. And that's just to make sure, as I say, so that if you are, in fact, you can see it better there, especially when I put my finger over it. You can see that. To make sure that if this is in your pocket, that you certainly won't start any fires. Now I guess the last little thing to show from here, 1, 2, 3, triple press. Here is the strobe mode. I mentioned, so this isn't a variable refresh rate on the strobe, it's just the same strobe that just does that same repeat. Now the Baton 3, just in this 2-week period, has become one of my favourite EDC flashlights. I don't have a top 5, top 10 style list, but if I had one, this would definitely be within my top 5 EDC flashlights. I mean, the amazing i5T and i5-3 definitely would be in there as well, mainly due to how small this is. I mentioned, I was expecting it to be bigger. I'd read the specs. I knew exactly how big it was going to be, but I don't know. It just fits perfectly in your hand, which you'd expect, for a flashlight, unless it's some bizarre shape. But putting it in your pocket, it just seems to disappear. Getting it out, making sure if you keep the pocket clip on there, being able to find the switch on here is super simple. Yeah, really impressed. I think Olight have nailed it on this one. Yeah, I genuinely do think they have. So yeah, now what I'll do is I'll leave some links in the description below so that you can see more from Olight. Always keep checking the website. I know you probably all know, but Olight constantly having sales. It's a Tuesday, there's an Olight sale. So yeah, I'll leave the links below, check them out. What have we got coming up soon? It's the Black Friday thing soon, so I'm sure there will be some more sales coming up to that. But yeah, so the links in the description below. And there's also a discount code as well here, so if you use this discount code, then you'll be able to get some discount off of your purchase extra, which is always nice. It's always good. And I forgot where I'm at. This is the bit where I say about my social media links. They'll be in the description below. And yes, for now, stay safe, stay Moorlander, and stay EDC. I think that is the sound of the lesser spotted. That's definitely the sound of the lesser spotted DeWalt drill. I'm sure of it. It's rutting season here in the moorlands. You tend to get these sort of sounds this time of year, but that sounds like a stag out on the prowl for a female. Let's see if we can hear it again. Come on, this will be perfectly timed if you do it. It's probably not going to do it. Yeah, you've probably heard that all the way through this, so apologies. It's the joys of filming outside, I guess. See you in a bit. It's there! Yeah, it should have come earlier. Right, let's turn the camera on and do some work.